Hello everyone, today we're going to go over in more detail the actual reactions of photosynthesis. So yesterday we talked a lot about light and the structures of a chloroplast, and now today we're actually looking inside the chloroplast. That's what this big green bean is here. This is a big chloroplast structure, and we're going to be looking inside it to see the reactions that are actually going on for photosynthesis. So we're going to start right here with our first set of reactions called the light reactions. So these are called the light-dependent reactions because you guessed it, they require light. In order for a plant to do photosynthesis, it needs light from the sun. That's where it's going to get the energy it needs to power the process of making its own food. So these light-dependent reactions require light. They are going to produce oxygen gas, one of our products for photosynthesis, as well as convert ADP, which was our low energy battery, and NADP plus, which is another type of battery, but like the off-brand battery. So you know, if everybody always uses Duracell, this NADP plus is like the generic brand of that. So it's not an energy molecule that all cells can use the way that ADP is. But they're going to convert both of those energy carriers into high energy carriers, so adding energy to them to make ATP, which is the energy that all the cells use, and NADPH. One way that you can remember that NADPH is not used in cells other than plant cells is because of the P here. Okay, we're going to learn about another energy carrier called NADH that is used in animal cells, but the P, think of that as standing for plants or photosynthesis. It's not actually what it stands for, but that's what we can use as a trick to remember that. So ATP and NADPH are our high energy carriers. So this is all, again, happening inside of the chloroplast. It is the process, the first step of photosynthesis, where the light is coming in, the sunlight is coming in. It is going to utilize water as well in order to absorb that energy, and then oxygen is what is produced. And this is specifically happening in the thylakoids. Those green stacks, that's what absorbs the light. Remember, we talked about photosystems, and photosystems contain the pigment chlorophyll, and those photosystems are found inside these green pancakes, and that's what actually absorbs the light energy. After all of the light is absorbed for this first set of reactions, called the light-dependent reactions, then the plant can actually do a process called the light-independent reactions. So light is not required for this second set of reactions. So this could happen at nighttime. The plant could, if there's a limited amount of daylight, it could just spend the whole day trying to absorb as much sun as possible to charge up those energy carriers for the light-dependent reactions. And then when the sun goes down, it could put all of its efforts into doing the second stage of photosynthesis, which are the light-independent reactions. Also called the Calvin cycle, based on the guy, last name Calvin, who discovered it. This reaction uses the ATP and the NADPH from the light-dependent reactions. So these two molecules come down from the light-dependent reactions, and they're used by the Calvin cycle to produce the sugar, the high-energy sugar that we know is glucose for our plants to eat. Because the Calvin cycle does not require light, again, this is also known as the light-independent reaction. So sometimes you will hear them referred to as light-independent reactions. Sometimes you will hear it referred to as the Calvin cycle. But it's important, it does not require light. However, it does require the energy that was produced in the light light-dependent reactions. So this reaction cannot occur all on its own. It still relies on the light-dependent reactions to occur first and give it those energy carriers that then it can turn into high-energy sugar, which we know is glucose. So here's a picture of that Calvin cycle. So again, not needing the light, that's why the sun is up here. Calvin cycle is going to take in the second reactant, the carbon dioxide, and it's going to produce our second product, the sugar. And that happens in a cycle, which means the raw materials are just going to recycle and be able to pick up the energy and be turned into glucose over again. These energy carriers, ATP and ADPH, have all kinds of energy in them. They drop their energy off at the Calvin cycle, and then they leave as the low energy versions, NADP plus and ADP plus an extra phosphate, that third phosphate that got ripped off when the energy was used. And these two molecules are going to go back up to the light-dependent reactions in order to get recharged by the sunlight. So these two sets of reactions have to work together. Again, neither can work all by itself in order to produce sugar. So the light-dependent reactions are in charge of trapping sunlight energy in a chemical form. That's why they need to have chlorophyll, they need to be green, and they need to have those photosystems in order to trap that sunlight energy. Then the light-independent reactions use the energy that was trapped from the sun. So they use that chemical energy to produce stable, high-energy sugars, which we know is glucose, from carbon dioxide, our raw material, and water. So here we can find in this explanation all of the parts of our equation for photosynthesis. So we're going to use carbon dioxide and water. So CO2 and water, H2O, using the energy from sunlight to produce sugar, which is in the form of glucose, H12O6, and it wasn't written here on this page, but the byproduct of that release is oxygen. And then we should add our 6's to balance it out. And there's our equation. Told you we would see that again. Now let's see if we can fill in our blank diagram here to briefly review an overview of these steps for photosynthesis. So step number 1, see if you can fill it in before I give the answer. All right, this step number 1, we've got a big yellow sun right here, and it's coming in. I should have made the pen a little bit bigger. Sunlight is coming in to this first part. What is the first part of photosynthesis? Those are called the light-dependent reactions. So go ahead and fill that in for number 1, the light-dependent reactions. Then once all that energy is charged up, we move on to the second phase of photosynthesis, number 2, over here, that can occur not with light, does not need light to occur, so it is called the, you got it, light-independent reactions. There is no number 3 on here, so let's skip over to number 4. So looking at the reactants, what we need to start our light-independent reactions, we need, and I drew a picture of it, light and water. Light and water are the first 2 things we need for our light-dependent reactions. And the byproduct of that, what is produced, is going to be oxygen. Number 6 gets produced from the leftovers of the water that helps to absorb the energy. But the real important product of the light-dependent reactions is number 7 and 8, and that is our energy carriers, our ATP and our NADPH. Energy. With that energy, the light-independent reactions are going to use it to charge up a molecule of carbon dioxide, number 9, and turn it into our final product. And the whole goal of photosynthesis is to turn it into high energy sugar, or in this case, glucose is our high energy sugar. And remember, glucose is I'll change that to black so you can see it, C6H12O6, right? So if you can remember the steps of this little diagram right here, then you have successfully learned all of the steps that you need to know for photosynthesis. Again, this is just an overview that we learn in our Intro to Bio class, and if you take an advanced biology class, you will learn a little more about the specifics of what is happening inside those chloroplasts at the molecular level, but this is the basics that we need to understand for this year of biology. So with that, this section of notes is all wrapped up.